As a gay man, I try not to eat Chick-fil-A. I know that the company has donated a bunch of money to anti-gay politicians, or at least that's what my boyfriend James tells me. He's pretty strict about avoiding the place entirely, and I usually just go along with it, but truth is, I freaking love Chick-fil-A. Those waffle cut fries are amazing. Last weekend, James was out of town and I had a craving. So I got in my car and drove to the Chick-fil-A near our apartment. I walked in and saw a group of three sitting at the table. They were three men in their 20s, all very blonde and very good looking, like they were models from a catalog or something. They sat together and were all praying. As I walked past them to place my order, all three of them stopped praying and turned to look at me. They stared at me with blank faces. Right away, I felt really self-conscious. I know it sounds paranoid, but I could tell that they instantly knew I was gay. I could feel the hate in their expressions. I looked down at my clothes and realized that my t-shirt had a rainbow design across the front. I didn't even realize that until I saw them staring at me. I didn't want any trouble, so I rushed to the front counter to order. I'd just get my meal, keep my head down, and then leave. The young guy at the counter didn't seem to care about what I was wearing. He took my order and I waited by the counter, as far away from that church group as I could get. As I waited, I kept glancing at the group. They were whispering again, and I knew it was about me. When my food finally came, I took it and I started to leave. I walked really fast, keeping my head down, but before I made it to the door, one of the men shouted at me to stop. I was not going to stop. I had to get away from them. I reached for the door ready to leave when one of the men jumped out of his chair and dove at me. He tackled me onto the ground. My bag of food went flying. I begged him to stop. I said that I didn't want any trouble. I just wanted to go home. He got in my face and said, "Do not leave." The other guys of his group gathered around me too. I was struggling to break free, but more of them were holding me down. I tried to look at the worker behind the counter, but I couldn't see him. "Please," I said. "I don't want to die." With all the strength I had, I pushed the guy off of me and jumped up. I tried to make a run for it, but they were all on me at once. They grabbed my arms and held me back from the door. That's when I noticed the commotion that was going on outside. I could see the parking lot through the windows, and there was a fight going on. Two men were loudly arguing next to their cars. It looked like one of them had crashed into the other, and things were escalating fast. The bigger guy pulled out a knife on the other one and started swiping it through the air. That's when I realized this church group didn't want to hurt me at all. They noticed the fighting outside and wanted to protect me. In my blind rush towards the door, I didn't see the danger that I was about to walk into. I instantly stopped resisting them and backed away from the door. I'm sorry," I told them. "I didn't realize what was happening." Behind us, the worker told everyone to stay inside. He had just called the police. I waited with the three men as the fighting continued outside. I watched with horror as the man with the knife jumped at the other man and stabbed him right in the stomach. He fell to the ground, blood pooling under him. The three men whispered prayers under their breath, and I guess I did too. Then the attacker reached down and yanked the knife out of the other man's torso. He stood up and started walking right towards us. I could hear the worker fumbling with his keys. He ran towards the door to lock it, but he was too late. The man with the knife had already pushed his way inside. He started screaming at us. "You saw nothing!" He was still waving his knife around. His eyes were wild. He was probably on some sort of. I stepped back, as everyone else did too. But that man kept walking closer. For some reason, his eyes locked on me. He ran towards me, and he would have stabbed me too. But all three of the blonde men stepped in front of me, shielding me from the maniac. They didn't even hesitate. They just sprang into action. His knife cut into one of their arms, but they were able to grab him from all sides and force him to drop the weapon. They held him in place, even though he was screaming at them and violently flailing around. A minute later, the police arrived. Two of them went to help the wounded man outside, while the other two came in and cuffed the attacker before it could hurt anyone else. The police asked for our statements and then left. I turned towards the three men and they were all happy to just be alive. They asked how I was doing and I said that I was okay. I apologized for jumping to conclusions and I thanked them for saving my life. One of the men, probably the most handsome of the bunch, came over and gave me a big hug. He smiled and said, "We could tell you were having a bad day. The way you came inside and instantly glared at us. I didn't even realize that I was glaring, but I guess I was. Maybe they had thought that I was the problem the whole time." The worker gave us all free food, and we sat together and ate. We wound up talking for hours. I couldn't believe that this happened to me, but I learned my lesson. I should never judge people before I get to know them. Sometimes complete strangers might save your life.
Natalie and I had been dating for 3 years before we finally broke up. I guess it was a long time coming. We'd been fighting over a lot of stupid stuff. Natalie was annoyed that I never took anything seriously. I was annoyed that she spent all her time at the gym doing yoga and stuff. I felt like she didn't value our time together. Neither one of us was to blame. It was just a case of irreconcilable differences. I was heartbroken, of course. I really did love her. After she moved out to live with her sister, I became a bit of a recluse. I stopped going out to all my favorite places because I worried that I'd run into her. I stopped seeing our mutual friends. I just threw myself into my job. One day, I had a mini panic attack in my house, and I knew that I needed to go out and calm myself down. I hadn't eaten fast food in weeks, so I decided to walk over to the Chik-Fil-A, just a few streets over. I'd like to say that I chose the restaurant because I was in the mood for chicken, but the truth is, I chose it because I knew that Natalie wouldn't be there. Natalie was always a bit of a health nut. She refused to eat at any fast food place unless she was really stressed, which almost never happened. I figured it would be the one place where I wouldn't run into her. I was wrong. When I got to the restaurant, I saw Natalie sitting in the corner. Maybe she was stressed after all. Maybe our breakup was hitting her as hard as it was me. Or maybe she was just in the mood for chicken. For a second, I thought I could just turn around and leave, but she noticed me right away. She smiled awkwardly and I waved back. I went up to the front counter to order, and while I was waiting, I felt obligated to walk over and talk to Natalie. I didn't sit down, though. I asked her how she was doing, and she said that she was okay. She asked about my job. Neither of us revealed too much information about how we were doing. I really didn't want her to find out how much I missed her. The lady called me over to get my food, and I thanked God that my conversation with Natalie was over. I went to pick up my tray when the door swung open and a man ran into the restaurant. He was about my age, but I could tell by his eyes that he was high on some kind of thing. His hands were trembling. He stumbled forward, looked straight at me, and screamed, You're dead!" I'd never seen this man before in my life. Obviously, he'd totally lost it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a switchblade. He pointed it at me and kept repeating that I was dead. I stumbled backward, hiding behind one of the tables. He just kept walking closer. "Please," I said. "I'm not who you think I am." But he wouldn't listen. The man froze for a second, and I thought he was finally coming to his senses. but then he laughed and dove at me. He jumped onto the table I was hiding behind and slid his body across the flat surface. I tried to get out of the way, but he grabbed me by the front of my shirt and pulled me toward him. He raised the switchblade, ready to slash at me. He was still laughing. Before he could cut me, though, something got in his way. Natalie! She jumped at the man and knocked the knife out of his hand. All those hours at the gym had really paid off. She was way stronger than I was. The knife flew across the air and clattered onto the floor. But that man wouldn't stop. He kicked Natalie off him and then grabbed me again. He didn't have his weapon anymore, but that didn't stop him from holding my neck and squeezing until I couldn't breathe. "Please," I choked out. "Shut up," he screamed in my face. "After everything you did, you don't deserve to live." What was he talking about? The things he was ingesting must have made him extremely delusional. I turned toward Natalie. I couldn't say anything, so I just pleaded with my eyes. She had to help me. Natalie looked at me for a second, and then she glanced at the exit. Instantly, she spun around and ran outside. I couldn't believe it. My girlfriend of 3 years, the woman I thought I loved, was abandoning me? I couldn't breathe. I was going to die, and Natalie just left? "Hold still," the crazy man shouted. He squeezed harder. I could hear the cashier shouting at him to stop. Why wasn't she calling the police? My vision got blurry. I was seconds away from passing out when I heard the door open again. I was too woozy to see what was happening. But the man let go of my neck and I collapsed onto the floor. It took me a few seconds to catch my breath again. I forced myself to look up and I saw Natalie standing at the front door. She was holding onto a man who looked a lot like me. He was tall and chubby, just like me. Same hair, same glasses. Even our outfits were similar. The man tried to run away, but Natalie held him tight. Natalie was about half his size, but she would not let go. God, I loved her so much. The crazy man walked toward them. "Leave my boyfriend alone," Natalie said. "You got the wrong person." I couldn't believe it. The man wasn't high after all. He'd just mistaken me for someone else. The man who looked like me started to whimper. "I'm so sorry," he said. Don't kill me." "You know I have to," the crazy man responded. It looked like the fight was going to restart, but thankfully a police car pulled into the parking lot. 2 cops came out and asked what was going on. Natalie explained the situation as simply as she could, and the cops took both of the men away. I never found out what had caused the anger between them. It's probably best that I didn't know. Natalie ran toward me and asked me if I was okay. "I am," I told her. "Thanks to you." "I saw that man hiding in the parking lot," she explained. "And he looked just like you. I figured that there was some sort of mix-up. I hope you didn't think I abandoned you." "No," I lied. You probably won't be surprised to learn that Natalie and I got back together after that. The petty arguments we used to have just seemed so unimportant after my attack. We spend a lot more time together, and I even started joining her when she goes to the gym. I've already lost 15 pounds. We're better than ever, and nothing is going to come between us again.
My name is Wilson, and I'm 44 years old. I'm a medical doctor, and I live with my wife, Cassandra, and our only daughter, Meryl. My wife runs her small business in which she buys and sells antiques. As for Meryl, she is now 26 years old and still lives with us. Our daughter Meryl decided to follow in my steps. She managed to get into university and study medicine. Hopefully in the future, we can open our own clinic, Dad. The 2 of us working together. What do you think? Meryl said, excited. That's a wonderful idea. But you just started, and there's a lot of years of study ahead of you. It's tough. I just want you to be prepared for hard work, Meryl. Yeah, I know, and I look forward to it, but dreaming and making plans for the future is a good incentive, I think, my daughter replied, revealing her natural optimism, something that I always loved about her. During the first 6 months after her classes started, Meryl was indeed very enthusiastic, and she was studying hard. It was obvious that she enjoyed the medical course because she would speak a lot about what she was learning. It wasn't just to impress me or her mother. However, after that period, She stopped talking to us as she used to, and not just about medicine, but about life in general. She wasn't asking us, her parents, any questions or made jokes as it was common for her. Meryl was a happy and extroverted person, but her behavior changed. We noticed that she was now spending a lot of time with her cell phone. You sure been spending a lot of time on that thing, chatting with your friends from med school or any teacher? My wife asked our daughter. Huh? I'm using Snapchat, Mom. Yeah, I also chat with my friends, but there's so much more to learn. I met very interesting people thanks to this app. Don't worry, it's nothing like flirting or anything. I guess you can call them conspiracy theories. But the evidence is everywhere. People are kept in the dark, but I'm not. Not anymore, Meryl answered. Uh, well, as long as you don't leave your studies and your real friends behind, and mostly don't go meeting anyone from the internet, I said. During the family conversation, which Meryl barely removed her eyes from her cell phone. Yeah, of course. You can trust me, Meryl replied. At first, I wasn't worried about it. My daughter was young. It was perfectly natural for her to be interested in such things. It was all part of growing up, and it was also a good thing for her not to become overly obsessed with medicine. I thought that after a few weeks, she would just find a perfect balance between university and her newfound Snapchat X-Files friends. Unfortunately, balance wasn't exactly the word to describe what Meryl was about to go through. One day, I got a phone call. It was one of Meryl's friends from university, a girl named Kate. Apparently, my daughter had a panic attack and had to be taken to the hospital. Thank you for calling me, Kate. I'm on my way, I said. The girl was already there at the hospital, waiting for the doctors to say how my daughter was doing. I drove there as fast as I could, canceling all my appointments at the clinic. I decided not to tell anything to my wife, at least for a few hours, until I, myself, could get some answers. Hello, Kate. Oh, God, thank you again for being here. The doctors just told me that Meryl is now asleep after her panic attack. They said she had to be sedated. She's fine for now, but some tests and exams need to be done. Can you tell me what happened? Meryl was completely taken over by some dude she chats with on Snapchat. She said that they trusted her and wanted to share some classified government secrets with her about aliens. Oh no. Yeah, I know it's odd, but this afternoon, after receiving some texts and pictures, Meryl just snapped and started screaming. They're here among us. An alien race. They want to replace us human beings by alien clones who look like each one of us. It's happening for decades, if not longer. Here, see for yourself. They abduct us, take us away, and experiment on us before killing us for food and energy. While the clones take our place on Earth, and the government knows about it, they're selling us to the aliens in exchange for technology and cooperation. And then, immediately after, her panic attack took place. Meryl couldn't breathe, and her body just shut down. Fortunately, the emergencies were fast enough and took her to the hospital in due time. Thank you for the explanation, Kate. Obviously, my daughter needs therapy. In any case, did somebody actually see the weird pictures that she received? I asked. I'm her closest friend in university, so I was the one who brought her the things, including her cell phone. I did check her Snapchat, but I didn't see anything weird. No texts or pictures or anything. In any case, here it is. Her cell phone and her wallet. You can look for yourself, Kate said, handing my daughter's belongings to me. Just like Kate said, there was nothing bizarre, at least that I was able to see on Meryl's Snapchat. A couple days later, Meryl was allowed to return home. There was nothing wrong with her, physically at least. She was taking some antipsychotic medicines. Plus, I convinced her that she had to see a psychiatrist as well. He's a good friend of mine. You just go there to talk, and if you don't like it after the first couple visits, you can leave, I said. Okay, Dad, but it's true. All those things, she insisted, but she was at least calming down, I think. I didn't see anything on your cell phone, Meryl. Even so, you could easily be fooled like many people. Nothing to be ashamed of, I replied. But they're coming for me. The aliens. I heard them. They communicate through thoughts. I was warned, Meryl said. No one is coming for you, dear, I answered, hugging my daughter, feeling genuinely concerned about her mental health. A couple weeks later, I heard my daughter screaming in her bedroom during the middle of the night. Both me and my wife ran towards Meryl's bedroom. The door was locked, and the screaming stopped out of the blue. Meryl! Meryl, what happened? We heard you screaming. I'm going to break the lock, I shouted. After a few seconds, Meryl simply opened the door, sounding and seeming very calm, almost bored. Mom? Dad? What's wrong? I was sleeping, and you woke me up, she said with inquisitive and cold eyes. You were screaming. Why is your window open? I guess I forgot to lock it. As for the screams, I was probably dreaming. Can I go back to sleep? Yeah, of course. Sleep tight, I said as we returned to our rooms. From that night on, Meryl never spoke about aliens again. In fact, she barely speaks. And even when she does, I can sense that something is different about her. Even when she smiles, it seems bland, rehearsed, fake. But on the brighter side, she's back to being a great student, and she's going to graduate soon enough with top grades. Oddly enough, she never spoke about her idea of becoming my partner ever again. To be honest with you, Meryl seems like a different person altogether. And I can't stop thinking about her words about alien replacements who take real people away. Could it be true? Did they take my daughter away